The story takes place in 1966, deep in the rural outskirts of Savannah, Georgia, where the marshlands stretch endlessly and fog hangs low over the fields. Ethan Walker, a respected herbal healer and a man known for his calming singing voice, lived with his wife, Laura Simmons, in a small wooden house far from the bustling town. People often sought Ethan's help in the dead of night, trusting his healing hands and spiritual knowledge. One evening, just as the sun dipped below the horizon, a terrified family arrived at Ethan's house. They carried a young girl named Emily Carter, whose condition shocked everyone who saw her. Her behavior wasn't just strange, it was unnatural. Witnesses claimed her tongue extended far beyond what a human tongue should, touching the floor, and she would claw at her own scalp with a strength far beyond her age. Her eyes were bloodshot, and her voice sounded nothing like a child's. Ethan instantly understood this was not a physical illness. He performed spiritual rituals, reciting prayers and applying his traditional methods, and instructed the family to return after 7 days. However, that night, Ethan had a nightmare he could not ignore. A hideously deformed woman appeared before him, her face twisted with anger and pain. She warned him in a chilling voice, "Do not separate me from her. If you do, you will suffer." Ethan woke up sweating, but dismissed it as a product of stress. But the next night, Laura had the exact same dream. The same horrifying woman appeared and warned, "Tell your husband to stop. Do not separate us." This deeply unsettled Laura, but Ethan, strong-willed and brave, refused to back down. He believed it was his duty to help Emily, no matter the cost. When Emily returned the following week, Ethan performed a stronger, more intense ritual. After hours of spiritual struggle, he successfully separated the entity from the girl. Emily woke up weak, but free. Her parents cried in relief. Ethan thought the worst was over. He had no idea that this single act of kindness had unleashed a nightmare onto his own family. At this time, Laura was several months pregnant. Their days were peaceful, but every night she felt as if someone was watching her. One evening, needing fresh air, she stepped into the backyard with a lantern. Beneath the towering southern oak tree, something froze her in terror. Sitting silently in the shadows was the same grotesque woman from her dreams, her eyes glowing blood-red like burning coals. The entity didn't move. She simply stared. Laura screamed and collapsed. A few weeks later, tragedy struck. Laura went into labor prematurely. The atmosphere in the room was heavy, and the midwife's expression turned grim. The baby was born dead, its tiny neck marked with red lines, its eyes showing a faint crimson glow, eerily similar to the entity's eyes. The child was buried in the old church cemetery near the Savannah River, and grief settled heavily over the Walker household. For months, Ethan avoided traveling alone at night, but music was his passion, and he eventually accepted an invitation to perform in a nearby town. The performance ended late, and by the time he began his journey home, the sky was moonless and dark. His path ran through an abandoned cremation ground that locals feared, followed by a stretch of wild jackfruit orchard rarely visited even during the day. As Ethan walked, a sickening, rotting smell filled the air. He sensed a presence behind him. When he swung his flashlight around, nothing was there, but he knew he wasn't alone. He whispered protective prayers, quickening his pace. Then he heard it, the crunch of dry leaves, footsteps, matching his own, close, too close. His flashlight beam suddenly landed on a mound of soil near an old grave. He froze. The dirt began to shift, crack, and rise. Something was breaking out from below. From the grave, the same female entity emerged, her body contorted and her eyes blazing red. She looked directly at Ethan. Before he could react, the flashlight flickered violently and died, plunging everything into pitch-black darkness. Then came her voice, a whisper that grew into a violent scream. "I told you not to separate me from her." In an instant, she leapt onto Ethan's back. He felt a crushing, supernatural weight pushing him to his knees. His spine felt like it was snapping. He cried out, reciting Allahu Akbar and every prayer he knew, struggling desperately as the entity clawed at him, her breath cold on his neck. Just as Ethan felt he would die, the pressure suddenly vanished. He stumbled to his feet and ran through the darkness, blindly crashing through bushes and branches until a distant porch light came into view. He collapsed on the ground. The next morning he woke up in his own bed, surrounded by concerned neighbors who had found him unconscious near the road. Ethan had survived, but at a terrible cost. The attack had damaged his spine permanently, and from that day on he walked bent forward, supported by a wooden cane. He could never stand straight again. Word spread across the region, and soon a powerful spiritual healer named Samuel Reed traveled from New Orleans to investigate. After examining Ethan and studying the area, Samuel confirmed that the female spirit had indeed been seeking revenge for being separated from Emily. Samuel performed a final ritual, capturing the entity inside a sealed glass bottle and throwing it deep into the Mississippi River, ensuring no one would encounter it again. Ethan lived many more years, raising his family with quiet strength. He never talked much about that night, but the permanent bend in his back remained a constant reminder of the spirit's wrath, a physical scar from a battle between worlds. The terror faded with time, but in the Walker family, the memory of that night was never forgotten.